There's always been stories about the heroes who boldly travel the galaxy, engaging in daring adventures, tense diplomacy, and discovering new phenomena. Captains, scientists, explorers, engineers. But have you ever stopped to wonder who keeps those missions running? Who delivers the supplies to the edge of the galaxy? Who braves the asteroid fields with cargo instead of cannons? Who answers the call when every jump through hyperspace could mean adventure or disaster? Maybe the real heroes of space aren't commanding starships at all. Maybe they're just trying to make their deliveries on time. And did I mention their dogs? Well, that's what today's episode is all about. Welcome to episode 185 of Meeple to Meeple. Today, my guest is Nova Steinmetz, the designer of Spacedogs, an upcoming game that blends humor, strategy, a healthy dose of cosmic chaos into an adventure that's as charming as it is exciting. We're going to dive into the inspiration behind the game, the design journey, and what it takes to create a universe where our four-legged friends become the galaxy's most dependable heroes. What story will unfold in this daring canine journey? Nova, welcome to Meeple and Meeple. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
Well, I'm great and super excited. Thank you for having me. And wow,
Absolutely.
what an intro.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Before we talk about Spacedogs, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you first get into board game design?
That's a very good question. So I've been a board gamer kind of all my life. I really like board games. I like sitting around with my friends, the strategic aspect of it. So I'm also more on the higher class, non-party games kind of end of the spectrum. And I've been developing games on and off with friends of mine. But this one is where I really want to make it count, because it's also the first one that really got further than just a prototype. Usually the other games we played it for 10, 20 rounds and then discovered that it was not enticing. So it was just a game that we made for us. But Space Dogs is, the story is really captivating for me. And I want to have that most or many people can enjoy that game, because Space Dogs in itself, it happened to me in a dream, as cliche as it sounds. No, because I was playing in my dream, I was playing with good friends and was kind of a cooperative game, and the story was captivating for me. It's just how the synergies worked, and we were all playing as dogs, and I was like, that makes so much sense because dogs are pack animals. So of course we are playing as dogs.
Okay.
And I woke
Okay, that
up
makes sense.
in the
Sure, yeah.
middle of the night and realized that I never actually played this game. So I took my notebook, wrote some notes, messaged this one friend of mine that I was developing games before with, went back to sleep, woke up again in the morning, remembered nothing. And it was like 2 to 3 weeks maybe when I wanted to ask my friend another message and saw my own messages to him. And I was like, what the is going on? Why? Who wrote this? Space Dogs? What is that? And then I remembered that I got my notes, and the notes they were not good notes. They were like what you would expect from someone who very sleep deprived writes something in a notebook in the middle of the night. But that's kind of where the journey began. I kind of scribbled out the universe, and after half a year, so about 1 year ago, took the decision that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to release. This gives me something. It gives me purpose, and it means something to me. I
Right.
talked with many people about the game, and they were, just listening to the stories that I told them. So it is not just me. And that gave me enough fuel took the decision to make it full time now. So that's what I am now, a board game developer. It's crazy. It's just a crazy thing to say.
So you had this dream and this story begins to unfold and you decide that you're going to try to design the game. Was there a specific game or a specific board game designer that inspired you to help you in development?
During development, I mean, I think the scene of board game developers is crazy. There are so many insanely smart people out there, and they're so good in the core of their heart.
Right.
At no point I had the fear that someone's going to steal an idea, and I never. Everyone is just, this is insane, this is cool, your idea. How can I help? And of course, now I'm part of that, I don't know, almost cult where
Yeah.
I also like to help people. It's just very wholesome. And I never encountered something like that in my life, in a professional environment with strangers. And it's
Right.
insane
Right.
for me.
So
So it's not a board game or a well-known board game developer that has helped me, but more the community of board game developers in itself. And yeah, at every expo, every convention that I go to, I meet someone new. And that is very interesting to me because I'm not a person that is very outgoing. It's hard for me to kind of meet new people. And now, scratch that. That is gone. I feel myself in that environment.
yeah, you are part of a vibrant community now. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the actual game itself. You mentioned it's cooperative. Is it strictly a card game? Is it a board game? Is it a role-playing game? What can we expect from it?
So my pitch goes as follows.
Okay.
Spacedogs is a cooperative hex crawler with deck building elements and a strong focus on the narrative. Yeah, because deck building games, I just like them a lot. Kind of, you have your engine that you can build, you try and figure out synergies, not just with your hands on your equipment, but with your teammates. That would be awesome. And yeah, for the storytelling aspect, as I already said, it is very important for me personally because I think the most memorable moments are always when I'm around my friends and we together achieve something which becomes meaningful because it means something in the cosmos of the game. And yeah, I know I also like non-storytelling games, but as I already said, I also come from a background of role-playing games. But I feel people are very into playing games if they like that genre in itself. And one feedback that I got at one convention was that Spacedogs is the gateway into role playing because it's rule light. It just gives you kind of the archetypes of the character that you can play.
Right.
And it just makes it more fun to kind of act out what you're doing because your actions are very limited. You don't need to discuss what is the possibilities of kind of the realm of my actions, because a role-playing game can be overwhelming, especially if you're playing it first time.
Yep.
So that kind
Absolutely.
of Spacedogs combines all that aspects of easy to get into it. Well, I mean, now I'm working on the rule book and it's still a whopping 35 pages at the moment.
You're going to have to work on that.
Maybe a bit.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of pictures.
Yeah. So was it always your intention for your game to be a gateway to role playing, or did that happen naturally?
It kind of happened naturally because I just wanted to make a game that I would love to play. Because my heart is in kind of every aspect of the game. And this is kind of the game that I was missing out on my entire life. And that sounds very grand, but I try to make it actually good. So I hope other people like it too. And in the beginning, I catered a lot towards the broader board game audience and got I don't know, not necessarily pushback, but they were more on the front of not everyone really wants a strong narrative focused game, because over a session of the 2 hours, that is one scenario of the 12 in the base game, is about 15 minutes of reading. And
Okay.
that sometimes sounds overwhelming, but fret not, there might be an audiobook as a stretch goal. At
Okay.
the small stretch goal, it will be read in by me and my friends. And if the game actually takes off, I will hire professional people just to kind of read the excerpts and do the funny
Right.
voices, which
Right.
is important.
So when you say there's a lot of reading, do you mean reading so is there reading out loud by one player, by all the players?
Great that you asked that, because I absolutely forgot that Spacedogs is also a one versus many.
Okay.
So one person takes the role of the game runner that kind of does what pushes the narrative forward, takes care of setting up the map, if the event triggers are holding up, and plays as all the enemy tokens. But the game runner is not against the space dogs. We all win together. Just the game runner has different goals, whereas the space dogs need to, for example, solve a riddle or overcome the hardships of just enemies that are rushing towards you, or whatever the scenario forces you to do at the moment. The game runner's goals are more like gamified dungeon mastering, so to speak. So if you, for example, in the first scenario, hold a certain line for more than 2 rounds, then you get 1 check mark. If you either narratively or by strategic placement of some enemies force the enemies force the space dogs to explore into one room, which would look boring otherwise, and make them discover some hidden elements, you get 1 check mark because you did good. And so everybody levels up, and there's no, it's us versus them.
Okay.
It stays cooperative throughout.
Yeah. What kind of experience are you hoping players will get after sitting down and playing a session of Space Dogs? Like, is there a specific emotion you're hoping that they're going to feel that's going to come out of the game and the story?
And emotion is kind of the overarching term, because every scenario is handcrafted and different. Every scenario has its own hand-drawn map. And for example, the first scenario is kind of the most dungeon crawly experience that you can get. There are enemies, you need to fight the enemies. You learn how to play the game. There is one scenario, and I won't spoil a lot at this point, which works through betrayal and your assumptions of how an adventure goes. And I hated it. I in the playtest that we did, it was marvelous. People were angry. They were sad. I loved it so much because, I mean, that also is the writing needs to be good to convey these emotions. And in that part, it is the storytelling experience. If you would just fight someone and then win, that would be, well, I don't want to say boring, because there are so many games that do that. And that is an absolutely valid emotion to have at the end of a session. But I want this, yeah, as you said, like to have an experience, because it plays with your anticipations. There's one level, for example, that is that you can solve without firing a gun, and it's more about solving a riddle,
Okay.
and then the
So,
narrative that is spun around
right.
kind of that part that you need to solve.
So there's multiple skills that the players have to use or implement in the game rather than just exclusively combat.
Yeah, definitely. And it's most of these are emanating from kind of the people on the table, because that is a game aspect that is taken into account. Of course, it's a deck building, and the deck building works by you choosing a piece of armor, a weapon, and a tool, and you get some cards with that. And these cards, there's no card that says look in a direction. That's something that you actually have to see on the map that you're playing on, which is why everything is handcrafted. There are environmental hints, or you need to listen to the story or make your assumptions with your cooperative players. And yeah, so it is an experiment. I hope it catches.
Right. So during the course of a scenario, because you mentioned that it's deck building, the primary mechanic is deck building. So during a scenario, will the players be gaining cards that enter their deck, or is the deck built at the beginning of the scenario?
Mostly, or in the beginning of the scenario, it's in the beginning when you choose your loadout. There are, enemies that can shuffle in status effects. The higher tier pieces of equipment that you can get after a level, after a scenario, might also work more into the very dynamic deck building aspects. So you can add cards, multiply cards, but that's, far end, because the entire game is also meant to be very tutorial-like. So the first few levels are getting to know the game, and then you have your strategy. And then something changes, a new type of enemy is being introduced, which messes with your strategy, because all of a sudden they can add cards to your deck, or they mess with your temperament scale, which is your mood basically, which always shifts between wild and tame. And you get stance cards that you can activate, which offer passive bonuses. But as a drawback, your mood, your temperament always shifts into one or the other direction, and you don't want it to hit the end. So in the beginning, it seems easy because every 4 rounds you just need to switch the stance, and then ta-da, someone shows up and throws a wrench into your
of course
engine.
Are there variable builds for your decks when you play from scenario to scenario, or am I essentially the same deck every scenario?
No. In the beginning of scenario, first you're getting read short abstract. What is this scenario about? Like the Spacedogs hanging out in the cedar, their trusty spaceship, and how are they getting to the next scenario, and what are they searching for? And then after you can get a grasp of the kind of level that you're expecting. Is a mission where you need to run a lot. So heavy armor is maybe not the best choice, but you can choose your loadout, not only the equipment, but also the powers and stances that you bring along to solve the scenario. You can choose it freely between missions.
Do you start scenarios do you know what the broad strokes of the scenario is before you do your loadout to know how to fashion your deck beforehand?
Well, yes. For example, one scenario might be in the streets of Neo Tokyo, which means long alleyways. So you could put a sniper gun that has a long range, because your line of sight might not be limited. One scenario is in a jungle where the other thing might occur. So narrow corners, and you need to be moving a lot, but you could jump behind cover or whatever. So you can get a notion of what's to come and use that knowledge to build your loadout.
Okay.
But that's probably a skill that you don't have in the first 2 levels.
Right. What what was the biggest design challenge that you had to overcome in this process?
Well, lots. Like I said, for the question, if it was catered to role-playing game in the beginning, first of all, because I like role-playing games, so having a dungeon master game runner it's fun. I like it. And that is the biggest drawback, or people thought, especially because at the strictly board game events were saying, I'm insane. This is never going to work. So that is kind of why we started gamifying the game runner aspect. So they have their own goals, then they can achieve something. They have a ranking, but still not competing in a strict manner against the other players at the table. So everybody wins together, because that was the premise.
Right.
Because if there are people fighting each other at the table and you benefit the winner, then you have kind of a rolling snowball effect. But yeah, that, for example, was one strong design challenge. Also, how to calculate how many cards do you need in a deck.
Right.
Because you draw 5 cards and it's all movement and you can't use any of that. How do you circumvent these, either by manipulating what cards get added in your deck beforehand, or we added, for example, one action that you can do to prepare your deck a bit, or draw more cards, or put one card from your hand back on the top of the deck, just kind of as a fallback, because overall the game should be fun. And working through frustration is something that we try to alleviate with some ideas.
Right.
But more than that, I mean, I did now about 70 to 80 playtests, and so many people had great ideas, and to say no to a good idea because it's already full and the rulebook is long and it would make it probably better and more realistic in a certain frame, but to say no to a good idea because it doesn't fit the setting, that's also very hard, and it would be something for another game. But yeah, then also telling someone who really enjoys the game, the playtest that you just had with them, and they're encouraged enough to tell their idea to you, and then kind of how to deal with that, write it down, kind of think about it, but then at some point, because sometimes people are very kind of close to my usual bubble, tell them it's a good idea for a different game, also very hard. Because I don't know, there will be a different game. I'm already looking at the second one.
Yeah. So this is going to take us to my favorite part of the show, right?
Yes.
Everyone knows how much I love playtesting, and I had a really cool playtest experience just last week at Gen Con. So, so I'm kind of thinking a lot about playtesting right now. And of course, I ask this question all the time. How easy was it for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable and open up your idea to playtesting and feedback?
Well, for me, in my earlier life, because before I became official board game developer, because now I have a page on Board Game Geek, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been planning projects, so that's kind of what I was doing: team building, team management, and I think therefore it was easier for me because I know that I'm only as smart as I myself am. More people, more good.
Right.
To manage the ideas is kind of the part that is interesting. But yeah, especially in the field that I was working in, it's always important to hold up the idea that you become egoless in that team setting.
Right.
It's very good to pitch ideas. It's good to always let ideas go down easy. No idea is bad, but we can think about things, and nobody is allowed to kind of take ownership of an idea because we are all working towards a common goal. And that's also how I approach playtesting, because people are taking their free time is a very valuable resource for everyone, to help me release a game or release an idea that I love. And so I also want to be welcoming and open to that. And because, I mean, some of the challenges that I try to solve, for example, the XP gain for the game runner, is an idea that I myself not have.
Right.
Because as a team, we're always stronger, which is the theme of the game Spacedogs.
Right? How many times do I talk about it? our diversity comes from our strength comes from diversity, right? So as a team, we're stronger. I do love that, and you've talked about that a little bit. That and story seem to be the very core of your game, of the way you approach, the way you design games. You talked a lot about story, so let's real quick. Can you give us a little background story on Spacedogs? What are people going to expect?
So in the beginning, there was the first space race that we all remember. In the 60s, it was about power, who gets kind of ownership of space. And then there was a couple of years later, which is kind of our current time frame, there was a second space race, which was about profit, which a billionaire gets their ships into space to offer fun rides to the one who can pay what is now 200,000 or something. I forgot. But the third space race, that one was for us, for the common man. So there was a new technology is being developed, the stable room manipulation developed at the LEAP laboratories, but the first experiment went horribly wrong. Capacitors overloaded and it connected some locations in the universe energetically in a manner that I cannot comprehend. Let's say there are some magical aspects to it that we are in the game of Spacedogs going to find out what happened, because some of the things that happened were that 4 normal dogs were anthropomorphized, so they became human-like, upright posture, exposable thumbs, and the human condition also, because for them they were really shook, ripped out of their normal society, their cosmos. They also have all their backstories, which is aspects that you can find throughout the game or kind of as an Easter egg sometimes. Because I needed that for my world building, just to figure out how some of the characters' voices, basically. So I wrote a lot about what happened at which time to whom. And the game of Spacedogs is like 15, 20 years after that. We have perfected space travel. It's easy to take a trip to a distant star. And of course, it's a new frontier, a real gold rush, because there are untapped resources and all that stuff so humanity reached towards the stars. And that already happened when we are meeting the Spacedogs and start a new scenario. So we travel to distant stars and trying to figure out what happened there. Why are we here at this location, which most of the time it is Aurora so one of the dogs, she developed a compass machine that kind of gives her a rough estimate about the location of the next artifact or a location or a being or an object that also has been touched by this mysterious energy. And we're trying to figure out kind of what happens, because it's kind of at that point a very 80s style comic. So we go somewhere, something happens, it's always interesting. We try to figure out what goes, and then try to survive.
That is incredible. That is a great story. And I hope people really embrace that. I've noticed, particularly with Awakened Realms, right? They've chosen to use a graphic novel form for their campaigns in the Nemesis trilogy. Is that something similar that you are doing in the story, or is it all text? Because you did mention the rulebook has a lot of pictures. So is it more of a graphic novel or comic book, or is it just a book of text?
So there's the other 50% of this company, my very good long-term friend Tanya, and she's an amazing artist. And she has this very unique style that you probably already saw if you were on Board Game Geek or on the website. And she breathes life into kind of this very absurd story. She makes it believable that there's a dog of 2 meters standing in front of you, and I would love that we have more images during the scenario description, but she's also just one person.
Right.
And I
Sure.
don't want to burn her out. But
Right.
there will definitely be images just to, well, in my imagination it will be certain scenes that are very strong and just one location or a scenario where people talking to each other, and it looks, well, it's evokes a certain emotion that we have one image for that. Yeah. So we see how that fizzles out. Maybe she finds that she has 3 clones, and then we can do it as a graphic novel. That would be awesome, because I really like everything she does, and she's such a talented person. I'm super happy to have her on the team.
So I've noticed a trend. Designers like to hide a feature in their games that they really hope people will discover or uncover. Is there something like that in Spacedogs that you're really hoping people are going to be like, they're just through play of the game, they're going to just really grab onto this one feature that you've secretly hidden, whether it's a story, whether it's a card, whether anything like that?
Well, personally, I really like alternative reality games. I kind of played all of them worldwide.
Yeah.
So I really like doing the things, and to my friends, I always said, "Oh, I built this website for this one obscure fact that is setting in the Spacedogs universe. The one person that will find it will love it." And I just enjoy doing it and just, yeah, bullshitting my way around, kind of, yeah, to feel how the universe is, because it helps me write more compelling stories. But yeah, there will be little puzzles or QR codes that you can find that will bring you to somewhere where you can read an excerpt, a poem that Orion wrote to his former family that already is hidden away. So
Yeah.
have a look at the maps.
Okay. Is there one specific feature in the game that you're really proud of, and it's finished, but it brings you the most pride?
It was not the feature that gave me the most pride in the beginning, but in all the competitions that I've been in, the feature that was always held up high the most was the temperament and stance scale, because that is where I got, this does not exist yet. This is a very interesting mechanic to play around with, just to activate passive bonuses and kind of to trigger synergies. And yeah, it kind of shifts and you need to balance it out. But
Mhm.
then there are sometimes you need to become enraged and lose your next turn. But it is important for kind of the mission to succeed that you just give it a bit more. It kind of, I think it makes it relatable, because we've all been in situations where we're like, "Oh, I just want to go to bed." But if I go the extra mile right now, the product will be awesome. Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's where I got a lot of very positive feedback for. And I also really, I like it. It's beautifully designed. It's very easy to grasp. Uh, and the emergent systems that come out of it, because the passive stance that you activate helps your teammate to achieve something to be better.
Right.
And that's, yeah, cool.
Alternatively, is there something that you really were proud of that you ended up having to cut from the game or the system, and that you're hoping maybe you can bring back later, either in a different game or in an expansion or something of that nature?
Well, of course, there are lots of scenarios that were either not good enough yet, or like I already kind of dove into a little bit. The entire world building
Right.
is something that I do mostly for fun, because after a full day of developing Spacedogs, I sit at the same spot at the same computer and then think about a different aspect that is not, well, not helping the game at all. It's just fun for me.
Right.
But yeah, having kind of the universe might help doing an expansion at some point. And I also really like just storytelling. And that is also a very positive win was at some conventions because like I already pitched it, Spacedogs is a cooperative hex crawler with deck building, and it's a strong focus on the narrative. And I always say that, and people just have to believe me. So what are we going to do? Because I am sitting at, even if we do have a playtest session at a very loud expo, I am just improvising because for me it's important. There are new people that are into the game and everything is loud. So I kind of talk to them, look them in the eye, move my hands to do the funny voices, but that is not necessarily the written story anymore. So what I did was write a few short stories and print them myself just for people to have a look. And they took the prints and I didn't have any at the end of the day. And every single con, people walk away with them something that I wrote because they said, this is so good, it's worth stealing. And I love it.
It's so good, it's worth stealing. Oh, that's great. Was there, how did you balance so again, you've talked at great length about the importance of story. It's narrative driven. That's the core, but it's also a game. It's deck building, particularly in a large convention hall that's really loud. How do you balance the theme of, maintaining the story at the core and then the game mechanics? How do you balance that?
Well, I feel like the hand-drawn aspect of the map really helps, and the art aspect. So everything looks very futuristic and over the top, and that draws you in to kind of uphold the suspension of disbelief. You are not actually playing a game; you're living kind of a bit closer. You're walking over the hex fields, and that works quite well, I guess, because at some point, especially when the storytelling aspect comes into play, I think the biggest table that I ever played with was 8 people because they kept stopping. I was like, this looks interesting. Can I join? I was like, yeah, it's cooperative. We all play 4 players and you all try to fight me. Just grab a table, come closer. And because I mean, there were lots of people, so other people stopped. But that was very fun. I loved that. But yeah, how to combine that with mechanics. I think most deck builders, or especially in the common time, kind of they want you to break the game. And I am actively not forbidding this because there are basically runs where a smart combination of where the tools that are at the disposal of the players and some items that they have, and they made very smart plays, and I don't want to limit that. And they were having fun at the table, and this is nothing. This is it should be prohibited that this is the golden scenario that works for every mission.
Sure. Right.
But if an item that is only discoverable by walking through certain chests and roll of the dice, basically, and then if it turns out good, so be it. I love it.
So do you have a piece of advice for somebody who's thinking about designing a game? And I mean, I know you're not launching just yet, you're still working on it, but do you have one piece of advice that you would give to somebody starting out?
Go out, play it with other people, because you get feedback from non-friends, which is very important. Not family, not friends, not people that need to be nice to you because you will see them tomorrow. There are always, especially in Germany, there is basically in every bigger city, there's a group of game developers that are meeting once a month or something. And it's such a diamond to have a group of people that you can ask, especially if there's kind of 2 big camps, people that are searching rather for publishers or people that are going to become self-published. And of course, this is very different roads except for the game mechanics, which is where everybody is insanely helpful. But yeah, pitching a game to publisher is very different than all the extra hoops you have to jump through
Right.
when going self-published.
Yeah.
But even then, there's I don't know, at one convention, I was pushed into a Discord stream or a Discord channel where there were just a handful of people that are professional rulebook editors. And the things they have to say is just great. So yeah, my advice is go out. There are people that are smarter than you, and that's wonderful.
Yes. Yep. That is absolutely true. Tell me a little bit about the just the gaming community in Germany, right? Obviously, the largest gaming convention in the world is in Essen, coming up here in a few months. So many games have come out of Germany in the modern hobby, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's easy for someone to just assume that it is like at the, it's the peak, it's the pinnacle, and it's, mainstream. Tell me a little bit about the community of gamers in the hobby in Germany.
Well, first of all, there are a lot. Well, before that, I just need to plug that Spacedogs will also be at Essen. So everyone who's listening right now, come give us a visit. You get a high five and a sticker pack.
Hey, there you go.
But yeah, here, I don't know. I think there's something about, maybe it's a bit of cliche, but about Germans and rules that you need to follow. And who follows it the best is the winner of the game. So, I mean, there's a reason why it's called Euro games, probably.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, there are definitely lots of conventions every month. I am going somewhere to showcase either Spacedogs or just talk to people, learn something new. And yeah, I think it's also a respite for people just trying to kind of get by, because as I've said in the beginning, the community is just amazing and friendly, and it feels warm and cozy to hang out with like-minded people. So yeah, I don't know, probably it just kicked off because there's an overhead of people that are here, living here, and because it became a community, it became a strong community. I don't know. I don't think it's something about the forests or the not almost non-existent mountains. Probably it's because of that. So people need to imagine their own scenarios.
Right. Right. Is there a board game out there that you think is flying under the radar and that deserves more hype out there right now?
Probably. I mean, so in my group of friends, a board game that we really loved was Detective. It's also a storytelling game by Portal Games, I think. And the way they wrote the story is absolutely stunning. It's exciting, and the mechanics they use to introduce an aspect of, yeah, you don't have enough time and you need to solve the case. It's very masterfully done, and it captivated us so much that we actually met once a week, fully dressed as 80s detectives or whatever the setting was. Someone brought donuts, and there was just, yeah. So if someone is in for a good case, a good story, puzzle, and spending time with friends, Detective is something that uh, I cannot give it much more credit than it deserves, or as much credit as it deserves, or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So what is your dream table? If you could play Spacedogs with any four people, dead or alive, who would they be?
One person would probably be Andy,
Yeah.
because in the beginning, when I was before the time where I was doing it full time, I was reading Project Hail Mary. So it was maybe 1.5 years ago. And I was on my ebook reader reading a very obscure version of it. But in the end, it had kind of hey, I did the story. I hope you like it. And then a personal email address. I was like, this is probably wrong. So I just write him. I was like, dude, the way you write characters is so compelling and I love it so much. And I am also in the process of writing a fictional story. And I know you like space. If you also like board games, I will send you a copy free of charge just to kind of get it out of screaming into the void, basically. But I kid you not, an hour later, he replied with post office box. I was like, I'm looking forward to that. So definitely that guy.
Okay. All right. Andy Weir. Yes.
Yeah. And apart from that, I don't know, definitely, well, the people that are around me that help create this game, because it's not, I said it's me and the other 50% is Tanya, but I'm living in such a great bubble of people that are encouraging me to, yeah, to live this dream. And yeah, that's something. So how could I get them off the table? They are always invited, even
Yeah.
if we're 20.
Is there a game, role playing or board game, that's had the biggest impact on your life outside of gaming?
Outside of gaming is probably just role-playing games in general. Friends and a very good friend of mine and I, we were writing just one-shot episodes for a role-playing game setting that we made up because we were upset with the rules of because just wanted to throw some dice and tell a story cooperatively, and that brought me way out of my comfort zone to talk to other people, and they're talking to you. But I also want to encourage them to talk to each other. And they ask me every single detail about the story. I'm like, I don't know, man. So I need to come up with something on the spot. So yeah, the stories that I wrote with that person also really helped me kind of to become the person that I am, to overcome this anxiousness, to fail often, and survive. And yeah, that's something. I mean, it sounds so great, so grand, because it's just a role playing game and you're sitting on the table with friends. Of course, nobody's going to kill you. But sometimes it feels like it. Or I had, when I was growing up, I had the conception that I was unable to be wrong or to fail. And that is something that now I learned differently, and I'm very
Right.
grateful for that.
I I don't talk a lot. I mean, there's a space for tabletop role playing and I engage in it myself, but I don't talk about it a lot on the show. Years ago, gosh, 25 years ago. God, I'm old. Was playing Mage the Ascension. It was a role playing game by The World of Darkness, White Wolf Publishing. They're no longer in existence. And I was playing this, so I was in my early 20s, and through the dynamics of the different players, we were in a position where someone had to take a leadership role, right? And I'm 21, 22 years old. I'm a, quiet little scrawny guy. And like my character just kind of naturally was the leader. And you talk about getting out of your comfort zone. Yeah, I was not used to like, directing people and balancing multiple personal objectives and motivations and goals and trying to make sure that everyone's taken care of and trying to assist everyone in all of their objectives, all the while trying to manage my own in this huge campaign that ended up being like 3 or 4 years this game went on. But it really developed a lot of my skills that I think in a lot of ways has led me to this podcast and has
Uh-huh.
helped me to build a community and interact with people around the world, such as yourself. And I think I can trace it back to playing Mage the Ascension in my 20s. And yeah, I never would have thought I'd be here 20 something years ago. So
Awesome.
there's definitely a place for role playing games.
Uh-huh.
And I need to try to spread the podcast out more. Yeah. So, so I love that. I love tabletop role playing, and it's always got a special place in my heart. It's usually board games nowadays, but every now and then. So Space Dog seems to be this perfect hybrid of board gaming, right? You have some deck building and that, but it's a cooperative game, but there's role playing because the story, the narrative is at the heart. And it sounds like you are well on your way to achieving that, all of your goals in this game. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I
So,
always say, so we are right in the niche between board game and role-playing game.
yeah.
And 12 people of us that like it, love it. But yeah, coming back to your story, thank you for sharing. That's
Yeah.
very inspiring.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. I hadn't thought about it in a while. So, yeah. Thanks for being the impetus for bringing that story back to my memory. Yeah. What
lovely.
does, at the end of the day, when you finish the design, you launch it on whatever, whether it's a publisher, Kickstarter, GameFound, whatever, and we haven't even talked about that yet. What does success look like for you?
In general, with anyone, not just me.
No,
So if I
for Spacedogs, what does success
for
look like for
Spacedogs,
you? Yeah.
if it's printed, and that means 300 people have to buy it,
Okay.
because then I brought something that I created into this world.
Which is huge, right?
Yes, that's crazy.
It's scary too. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the plan? I know that Board Game Geek says it's a 2027 release.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning Kickstarter? Or are you pitching it to a publisher?
There will
What is the
be.
plan?
Well, I'm beyond the phase where I pitched to
Okay.
publishers, because it was too niche and I was bringing art, and it's not something that sells well in the terms of a publisher. There was one that is or was interested, and we're kind of still on talking terms. But well, if it would be my greatest dream if they would be the publisher for North America, because this is insane, the regulations at the moment. I would not like to touch it if I don't have to. Yeah, but it will be released probably or most likely via Kickstarter in February, where the campaign will go live. Then we need some months just to finish up the designs and playtest the final kind of goal, the final missions, and then print it, ship it worldwide. I have some fulfillment centers already that I want to work with, because they're very nice people. And for me, it's such an overwhelming experience just to go, just all the hats that I'm kind of collecting over the past months.
Sure.
So if I have a very nice phone call with someone and they sound like they can handle stuff, that's a weight off my chest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can only imagine. Absolutely. So anyone who's interested, go ahead.
Yeah, if the stars align and everything works out, then by the end of 27, the first people will have Spacedogs in their shelves and hopefully out of the packaging and on the table.
Awesome. Awesome. So for everyone who's interested at Spacedogs, where can they find you and on all the social media?
Well, there's spacedogs.rocks, our website, where you get a very good overview and some links, and soon the rule book, so you can look into it and see if it's overwhelming or not. Otherwise, we are spacedogs_game on Instagram, where I publish most things and are kind of responsive or attentive to most other social media things. The entire social media game is crazy for me. I never had a social media account in my life and needed to have one for this game, because a friend of mine who does professional marketing said, you need to go out there. People need to see you with your face, with your voice, because it's your authenticity that sells, because nobody has heard about you or the game. So that was a big step. And now I'm kind of doing video interviews or reading my own short stories to a crowd of people. And it's also been a very interesting feat, because on the one hand, we talk about the dangers of social media and that you're comparing to yourself to the people that were born better or Just
Right.
you are comparing your everyday life with the peak shining spotlight moments of
Yeah.
some stranger. And for me, it was kind of a very different interaction because one of the videos 3 weeks ago that I did, super cringe. And I just put it out there. I was like, the video, I had an idea about what I wanted to talk about, and I was not, yeah, it didn't feel right. The video so I scrapped everything and I did that twice. And the third time I was just leave the camera rolling and we goof around and be me and do funny stuff and talk about the game and cut it, pushed it online. And I think 700 people saw it and 30 people liked it. It was crazy. I'm like, someone watches the shit that I do when I'm on my own and unsupervised and pushes the like button. This is insane. This is more on them than it is on me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, Nova, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your story with me. The game is Spacedogs. Hopefully, it will be launching on Kickstarter February 2027. Be on the lookout for it. And as always, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. But here's a question for you all. What is your favorite narrative driven game? Post it in the comments so that Nova and I can see it and we'll respond. We want to know what games are hitting your table that are focused on story, that are narrative driven. So let us know in the comments below. As always, be kind to each other. Let's play more games.
Exactly.